Hello, everyone. My name is Tara Zanker. I'm an AI specialist and digital tool trainer, and I'm joined here today by Alan Thornton, and he's going to show us his fantastic product, the AI compliance app, and it's used for basically everyone, Alan, which is absolutely fantastic. But maybe we might start if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much, Tara. So my name is Alan Thornton. I am the founder of Tipcan Solutions and the creator of the AI compliance app platform that's looking to support businesses with AI compliance, especially those covered by the EU AI Act.
Fantastic. And, I suppose before we look into the demo of it, Alan, would you mind, I suppose, telling us how you came about creating this app? Like, what gap did you see?
Yeah, no problem. So about 10 weeks ago, Scale Ireland actually released a startup report. And one of their key findings was that founders and business owners in their community didn't really have any knowledge about the EU AI Act. And that kind of tweaked something within myself as a business owner because I didn't know about the EU AI Act. So I fell into the 86% of people who would use an AI tool in their business and not have any clue that I had now obligations and transparency notices and labels and all this stuff that I had to, figure out how to implement or track in my own business. So with a background in working on sustainability mandates and being involved in business in general for over 10 years, I saw that if that 86% stat was true, well, then there would be a huge problem coming for people. So, with my own kind of background in tech as well, I just instantly created a solution. I said, look, let's build a framework that just works for covering compliance against the EU AI Act. Let's make it plug and play for everybody, any industry, any sector. Make it as frictionless as possible, so like a non-technical user could get involved in this. And that was it basically. So just develop the product. We're constantly updating it, and yeah, it's available to everybody. It
Fantastic.
doesn't matter who you are.
I would love to have just maybe two follow-up questions before we get into the demo with that. When you say AI compliance, would you mind explaining that a little bit more?
Yeah, no problem. So the EU AI Act came into force in June 2024. And as part of that, there are it's happening in stages. They're rolling out different obligations for tracking, monitoring how you use AI in your business, how you train people within your business to use AI. And they essentially want to have a legal kind of framework in place that covers all industries, all sectors, all use cases by 2031. That will be the kind of final enforcement date. But as things stand, as of August 2nd this year, so about 40 days ago at the time of this recording, the transparency obligations deadline was passed, and that's focused on what's called a limited risk system or general AI. So you might see that Microsoft, Google, X, a lot of the kind of big Gen AI creators signed a code of conduct with the European Union. And transparency obligations then for users of these tools within their business in any way kicked in, where people basically have to produce transparency labels on any content that meets the public eye, and then they have to log, monitor, and train their people in-house as well. So that's kind of the first stage. Obviously, I could talk for 10 minutes on this, but
Yeah.
that's where
Well, look, what I was
that's where
going
we
to
are
say
now.
is that definitely we'll put in the scale report that you mentioned earlier, and we will put in the EU Act so people that can find that information and look further into it. But I think it's really interesting that you actually mentioned as well that this is for everybody, and that 2031 deadline is potentially coming in, but there are obviously stages leading up to that kind of 5-year deadline as well. So it doesn't really matter how small your business. Am I correct in saying that you kind of have to get on board today?
Yes, that is correct. So a great example would be myself. So in my own self-employed consultancy before, the compliance tool came around and I have some guys working with me now, I would use Gen AI tools to create content for social media or for clients. And as an individual business owner who does that, I have a whole compliance governance piece that I have to put in place under the transparency obligations. I have to track the systems that I use, how I use them, and then make sure that there's an audit trail in place that if anybody ever came asking, similar to your accounts, your financial accounts, it's a very similar thing. I'd be able to produce that. So that's what it's all about. So everybody has to do that. Doesn't matter if I'm a
Gotcha.
solo individual
Yeah.
or. Microsoft.
That's great. So AI, in reality, we're using it to save time, but now it's added a small bit more admin. But I guess this app in reality does make that part of it, a little bit of setup, which you're going to go through with us now. But once you've kind of done that, it does make it that little bit easier to manage. So let's break into the demo, and I'll ask you some questions along the way.
Perfect. Sounds good. So when you come to our app, this will be the login screen. Once you've got an account set up, you can sign in, and straight away the dashboard looks like this. Apologies, it's asking me to change my password and everything is popping up. Excellent. Look, this is what the dashboard will look like once you sign in. So a tiny bit of a run through of what we see here. On the left-hand side, you can see just the menu items. When you click on any of those, it will bring you to the relevant area within the app or in the overview dashboard section. Across the top banner, we can choose from a different language to English. If you happen to be in another European country, we have 7 implemented. As you can see, coming soon is still there. I will sort that out later. The tool is industry agnostic. So again, you choose your sector once you log in from the drop down. So we cover pretty much everything: finance, healthcare, the creative sectors like marketing, public sector is in there, legal services, consulting, tech and IT, whatever industry you are in or is most closely relevant to the industry that you're in. You basically just pick from this list, and the tool itself will kind of adapt to the EU AI Act and the different articles that would be relevant to those sectors in
Oh,
different use
brilliant.
cases. Okay, so
Fantastic. Yeah.
that's how we, say we're industry agnostic. The EU AI Act has guidelines that just apply to everybody, but in slightly different ways, depending on your industry and your use case. So we've hopefully accounted for 95% of the coverage there. I'm sure there will be individual use cases that may be slightly outside of these sectors, but we can tweak for that, no problem. There's a training piece as well across the top, which I'll just click into quickly. So under the act itself, one of the key parts is that individuals within a business who use AI, they need to have basic training. So they need to understand, the principles behind AI and how that works, the limitations and risk of AI, what the values of the EU are in the Act is another key piece, and then issue escalation. So these first 3 bars are squares here. What is AI? Responsible AI and issue escalation are actually like required for anybody using AI in a business. That training needs to be um, delivered to those employees now. So technically, this actually kicked in June 2024, but there's been a little bit of leeway on this. But since the transparency deadline of August 2nd, the Article 4A, which covers this, is being taken much more seriously now. So it's something that we wanted to add to the platform to at least deliver that basic level of training, so you don't have to go elsewhere and pay somebody else to run a course for you. You can do it here inside the platform. Um, and there's other bits as well if you want to do them. And you can review, download. If you've got staff members, you can assign them to do the training. You can see that they've done the training, and then you can run that maybe every 6 months or whatever is relevant to your
How many
industry.
teammates can you have on the platform?
So there is no seat limit to
Okay.
how many team members can be added. So I would obviously recommend that everybody and anybody is not added. Um, for the general use of the system, probably management, senior management, and whoever is the AI compliance lead, and that could even be your solicitor or whoever
Mhm.
you need it to be if it's somebody external to the business. Then within training, you can create employee accounts which are managed separately, so they can gain access to that training center, but they wouldn't have access here to where you build out your systems and your audit trail, because obviously
Okay.
this is a legal kind of situation and you don't want anybody to just come in and make changes or make edits and essentially kind of mess up the audit trail. So that's just a little piece on training and how many team members can come in. So straight away, we kind of hold your hand through the process. Once you log in for the first time, you can see your compliance journey here. Each sector or section is interactive. You select your sector as we've just done, technology and IT. We're going to add our first AI system. You just click on this. Couldn't be any easier to add your first AI system. Then you will run a risk assessment and generate your first report. So what that looks like in the demo, we already have some, so it's not letting me show that. Perfect. So if you want to add all of your use cases and your systems in to create an audit trail. This is what that would look like. So straight away, we're going to add a system. So let's say, just to keep it really, really simple, we're using Google V3, for example. We'll say that it's an internal use case. We mark that the vendor is Google, who supplies that for us. We're using it for marketing collateral. Let's just keep it simple. The system type is a Gen AI system. So it creates video based on prompt inputs, and that's what it is. So we select generative AI. So under the EU AI Act, Gen AI is transparency relevant. So it's a limited risk system. So there is a little bit of training that would be required for people who use this system to understand
That's
how
what I
to
was going to say.
categorize things.
Is this something
Yes.
that you can get through the training that's there, or would you recommend speaking with your team?
So you can speak with us initially to get guidance on what's there, but I will show later on in the demo that we do have an AI tool built in that will support giving you guidance on the risk category. So you can
That's great.
input the style of product, its function, and it will basically spit back at you what risk category it thinks you have, and it will provide reasoning for that. It is obviously on you then as the human to 100% confirm that that is correct.
Okay.
So the
Yes.
AI can get you close, but sometimes there can be a blurred line between limited and high risk, but we can
Yeah.
explore that in detail at a different time. So you pick limited
Do you mind
risk
if I just
system.
ask as well one very quick question about the purpose of it, and does that change the limit of the risk? So if you're saying marketing collateral there, obviously this could be potentially used for creating adverts that may have some false information into it. Would that increase or decrease the risk depending on the use case?
No, it wouldn't. So it would be on you to understand the systems that you're using and if they have a bias or if they've got some sort of kind of model issue in the information that it spits out when you're creating those
Okay.
creatives. So this essentially here now is from a basic perspective, what we want to focus on is building out your compliance framework. The nuances on, bias control, models, explainability, all of that, we can touch on a bit later. It's a tiny bit more
Gotcha.
technical.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
right now we'll just log our systems, show you what
Perfect.
that means, and then what an audit trail looks like. And because
Fantastic.
that gets you covered basically.
Yes.
And then everything
Yeah.
else is a technical
So
nuance.
essentially, don't worry about it too much for now, anyway. But
Yeah.
yeah, okay, that's great, brilliant. Thank you
E-
for that.
e- No problem. And just something to note as well while we're filling this out, the August 2nd transparency date is actually expected to be backfilled for people who haven't started already. So for every day, every month, every quarter that you delay setting up your compliance framework, you obviously build up compliance debt. And then that just becomes more expensive over time from an admin perspective, an hourly perspective, just
Yeah,
something to pay attention to. So not a
brilliant.
lot of people know that.
Absolutely. Okay, that's great to know.
So as we run through our system here, we're picking the Google V3 Video Creator, which is a Gen AI tool. It's limited risk. Our description is we use this to create social media adverts. I'm going to assign a risk owner. So every tool that you create has to have a human assigned to it from the
Hmm.
oversight obligation requirements. The business impact, we're going to say it's medium because it's a limited risk system. We do have compliance obligations that we need to meet, and we create that card. So success, the system has been created. So down here at the bottom, you'll see our Google V3 card, classed as a limited risk system. We click into this and it then produces everything that you need to make sure that your compliance documentation is on point. So the very first thing is a risk register. So it will map against the act based on the system categorization that has been assigned to that use case. So straight away we can see here that Article 50 and 61 are the relevant articles of the Act, and 50 covers transparency obligations, which is essentially everything to do with Gen AI. And then there's a public accessibility of information piece, which is only relevant to specific Gen AI use cases. Again, we can talk about that in more detail later. But for now, you can see that we've got some transparency obligations to meet. So the second tab is transparency. Here we are straight away. you've developed social media video content through Google V3. Now, you have to put a label on that. That is a requirement as the deployer of that content. You now have got to inform people straight away, as soon as they see your video ads, that it has been created with AI, supported by AI, or generated by AI, whatever is the most relevant notification. If AI did 30% of the work, you'll probably say supported by AI, for example. If you've done the whole thing with AI, you will basically have to put on there AI generated, right, as a label that's clear. So in here, we can assign that to our use case. So user notification implemented, we click that on. We will say the methods that we use is going to be disclaimer text within that video content. We can then track what we use here. So we're going to say AI generated, assume that it's 100% generated. So we're tracking exactly what's happening. I, again, am the responsible person, and I'm going to log that into the system today, September 12th, and save that transparency data.
Okay. And do you need to do that? Would you need to come in and put that on every time you create an AI generated video and upload it as an ad? Or do you just have to do it the once to say, I am creating AI generated content?
That's correct. So you just have to do it once. So if you use Google V3 throughout your business, to create video ads all of the time. You just have to log that use case as this is the tool we use and this is why we use it. If that changes, you have to make an edit to that or add a new system that has a different use case or takes over from this. And again, you just go through the same process and you're creating basically
Fantastic.
a timestamp of everything that's being used and tracking against the obligations that you have. So we've saved that in there. You can see our limited risk system is getting up to 40% complete. So it won't always reach 100 because the bar there does include that Article 61, which isn't always relevant to everybody. So this doesn't always have to hit 100% just to make people aware. So if you have, for example, let's say you've got Google V3 as a Gen AI system, but in-house we'll go a step beyond just using it for social media marketing. I know in this example, we're not going to fill this out now because they're two different use cases, but just to speed things up and not have to create a second system on here to explain this. If you produce a wrapper of the Google V3 product to do something else, that maybe has an element of data scraping or some sort of information input that helps it shape the output that it gets, that's from kind of a human perspective, you'll be skirting the line of high risk. And you will then need to put in some sort of documentation because you are technically becoming a developer and deployer of a system because you're taking this Google V3, putting a wrapper around it, and it's doing something else. So technically, you've created a new system, which is an interesting perspective. But you will have to manage details on that in-house. So you can see we already have everything listed. Your system description, your risk management documentation, cybersecurity, architecture, validation and testing, training data, human oversight documentation. So all the headings are there. It could not be any easier to just fill out what you have to fill out. You can go through each section, put in your information. Perfect. Click Save Documentation. It's saved into a folder on the system for you, dated. It's gone into the audit trail as well. And once all of that is done, you click this little blue button that says Create AI Card, and that produces the EU standardized AI card in either a machine readable version or a human readable version. So what that basically means is you can download it as a JSON or HTML file or a PDF, right? That's
Brilliant. That's
in
fantastic.
yeah, in simple terms. So that's how that works. And when an
Just
auditor
to, I suppose, to
comes,
kind of just point it out again, because I do imagine that that documentation we could definitely spend hours just getting into like what all that means. But again, I would highly recommend just reaching out either to myself or Alan, and could walk you through what that documentation means, and what it is that you need to do for particular user cases if you're not sure as well.
exactly. So we will touch a little bit on documentation, but in the interest of time, we
Yeah.
will go beyond limited systems and jump
Mhm.
into the HR recruitment assistant. So micro enterprises, SMEs, large corporates probably have a tool that they use for HR. Their HR team probably have something from an outsourced third party or whatever it is that uses AI. So if you have your own tool in-house, you've got to track it as an internal system. If you have it outsourced and somebody's delivering that tool to you, you also have to track it, but it would be called a third-party system. So it would just be linked under third party instead of internal use case, but the same steps that I'm about to show you will apply on either side. So when we click into a HR recruitment assistant, brilliant. So with a high risk system, you can see there are some more tabs straight away. As against the transparency, limited risk systems. So the risk register kicks in again, similar to what you saw previously. Each article letting you know which ones you have to conform to. So how do we conform? Click the conformity tab. Again, we will hold your hand through the process within the system to make sure you're hitting all the relevant headings and article points that are relevant to your system. So if we click into any of them here, you'll see some expert implementation and guidance. This is what you will get from an AI consultant or a solicitor or a law firm. And again, they charge quite large fees to run through all this stuff, but it's here, it's built in. We also have the legal grade templates for high risk systems that you would get from a law firm as well, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But that's the conformity tab. Then again, same as the transparency piece, if there's a data input, you've got your documentation that you can one click into an AI card. It's the exact same process here, but you'll see there's 3 new tabs. So one is data governance, which is making sure that you can input the data sets that you have, not the data of the data sets, but whatever they are called within your organization and your tools, so you can just track what they are. And if any major updates need to happen to them, you can update your compliance piece on those data sets in here, and then that will be timestamped in your audit trails as well, keeping you compliant. We have the human oversight piece where you can build out the measures for your system where a human can step in to change a decision. So if your HR tool is screening CVs and it's after saying, no, this guy's terrible, and it's auto sent out an email saying you're not getting the job, but it turns out they're probably the best person for the job, that process of where a human can step in to override that decision just needs to be documented and part of the compliance piece. And you can add your procedures in here as well, SOPs, whatever you have. And then you'll have a compliance kind of overview piece here at the bottom as well. And lastly, vendors and third-party people. So as I said, if it's an outsourced solution, you're going to track and monitor that here, and you just kind of need to keep up to date on what they're doing. And essentially ask your vendors every quarter any updates to the system, any major changes that we need to log, and you would do that here. So again, it's all handled inside the system. You complete this, we go back to our dashboard, onto what's relevant, that will produce the audit trails. So the audit trails are what are key to be compliant with the EU AI Act. So every time you create a tool, a use case, or a system, documentation or a training updates in our platform, a timestamped cryptographic hash blockchain record of that is added to your account. So what that basically means is what you just saw me work on there is all logged here. This cannot be edited. It cannot be deleted. It cannot be removed. Nothing about this can be changed. So at any point in the future, if somebody was to challenge what you're doing, or if somebody was to take a legal case against you for how you use AI, or maybe they're claiming you're not compliant, or you're lying about what you're doing in your business, you can essentially show them this audit trail. You can one click it as an export or a JSON file from here. And because of the cryptographic hash blockchain setup, technically it's immutable in court. So it could be used as legal evidence for your business. So this is an enterprise solution that we added about 3 weeks ago, but it's available to everyone. It's in the base package. So you get this. And you can see in the demo there, we had about 5 cards listed. So when we scroll through the audit logs here, there's obviously way more than 5. So here's a whole history of what's been happening with AI use and system logging and training information throughout this demo account. And that's just kind of a reflection of how it might look for a real world business. So if you end up getting rid of ChatGPT, you're just never using it, you've banned it in-house, but you previously used it, you could remove it as an AI system, but the audit log and the timestamps of how it was used and when it was deleted are there, and they're always
Brilliant.
there. So
Okay.
that's what's really important about this. And you can then produce a visual overview for yourself, on how the records are working. So you can see on this demo system so far, we've had 38 records. all of those blockchain anchors are verified and fully functioning, so we can have confidence in the data when we download it. And just for people's own peace of mind, these are the legal standards met that are listed here. If any of these standards were to change or be updated, the system would be updated. And if there was a gap period between us updating the system to cover new legislation, that green tick would change to an orange mark just to allow people to understand that there's an update
On
in
that
progress.
small bit, Alan, just with the blockchain, I'm going to assume you don't really need to understand blockchain at all in reality. The system does it all itself. So it's just something, again, that if you do need it, you have it there. That it's automatically created for you. Just, yeah, just thinking some people might get a bit overwhelmed thinking, what's blockchain?
Yeah, no problem. So all people need to know here is they can log their systems in a straightforward way, as you would have seen earlier in the video, and it automatically creates immutable legal audit trails that cover you
Brilliant.
from a compliance perspective under the EU AI Act. So
Mhm.
again, if you go to a law firm, they're essentially just going to give you a folder of documents that does the same thing for you. And the verification that they would provide as a solicitor, where they basically sign off on that documentation, the blockchain is doing the same thing.
Fantastic. Great.
That's basically it. So that's kind of a general overview to get the foundations of your compliance in place. So what you saw there was how to log your use cases, how the system will lay everything out for you. So you can obviously, if there's challenges as you go through that process, we would be available to support individuals with that or businesses with that, not a problem. But getting your use cases in, inputting your documentation, saving it to your account folder, having those AI cards if you need them, and your audit trail good to go has you like 85% of the way there towards compliance, depending on your use case. If it's only Gen AI systems and everything's limited risk and your audit trail is created, once you're reviewing that every 12 weeks, you're fully covered. That's you're sorted. Everything is good to go. So one thing I wanted to highlight then was in case anybody is a larger business or building their own AI tool, there is a section in the menu here called high risk systems. And if I click into documentation templates, these are all of the documentation pieces that you would have to cover as a high risk system user or deployer. So this is where you could be getting charged 100 grand
Okay.
for documentation. So here, all the templates are done. They're mapped against the act. Everything is covered. You can see there's some pretty intense stuff in here, like obviously risk management system documentation, which is built off the ISO 31000. So it's done for you here. Works. What that looks like when you click into it. Gives you some expert guidance. And then for everything, you just click on the drop down and start filling out your information. So what are you working towards? Oh, I'm 27,001. Perfect. What are you trying to cover from a standards and regulation perspective? Oh, it's going to be EU AI Act. It's going to be GDPR. And you just build this out this way. So you would probably get a template from a solicitor or a legal team that just has all of these on it and you're filling it out. It's the same thing. So it covers absolutely everything for you for every single piece of compliance related to high risk systems across the board. So
Mhm.
all of those templates there are easy to manage. And what's even cooler about them is you can see them in there and you can build them out, and that's all great. But if we check out our high risk systems here, there's a little blue book. So when you create that high risk system, you can click that down and just click through the documentation, and that template will be instantly assigned to
Clever.
that system on the audit trail. So you've got kind of two ways to work on that. Outside of that, then, just to keep it very, very brief and short, the system will constantly be scanning what you've inputted and produce a gap analysis to let you know, what you're missing, where the issues are. It will label it super clearly, so there's no, you know, question marks over what's happening. So with our four AI systems, we haven't put in transparency labels, so that's an issue under Article 50. We need to get that sorted. Might take us half an hour. Straightforward. Same for the high risk systems or any tool that we implement in here. If you have use cases that are common, like a chatbot, for example, we have a system builder here where you can click customize, just walk you through the process of what you need to know. You can just read about this quickly, hit create AI system, and it straight away creates that AI card for you, assigns the risk level, and then you just go back in there, type in your documentation, good to go on the audit trail. These are the 16 most common use cases. When you click into the folder, you get all of them. But we tried to cover what most people are using across different industries here. So again, fraud detection system if you're in finance. It's just we
And sorry,
have.
I see there the 2 to 3 weeks, the 4 to 6 weeks. This is how often you should be, I suppose, giving a bit of oversight on it.
That's correct, yes. So the AI compliance lead or responsible person inputted on the AI cards will be whoever comes in and just double checks that, because stuff's always changing. It could change
Yeah.
next week, you know? So this whole dashboard is accessible through the menu on the left, but I'll just scroll down through it. So you can see there's a team management set up here where you can invite team members, stick in their email address, add them to the account. As I said, infinite seats. Any AI transparency cards that you produce will be saved here for quick access. You don't need to produce them unless somebody asks you for them. So that could be even from a contract perspective, or looking to win a new job, or a new contract or a new client. They might ask you, how are you working from a transparency perspective? You can print off your card on that day and just send it to them. Good to go. Happy days. That's all stored here. We then have the AI powered compliance tools. So if we jump in very, very quickly to look at these, the risk classification engine kind of answers that question you asked at the very start, Tara, which is, how do we know what system category, we need to assign? Is it limited? Is it high risk or whatever? So down here, you can describe that system. So you could put in there, I use ChatGPT to make social media posts. It's going out to the general public. You hit classify AI system and it will basically tell you, right, I think it's a limited risk system.
Okay.
So that's in here, and we stand over the outputs. Now, if there's a gray area, we're happy to support on that. That can happen. As I said, if there's a limited risk system that has data inputs, it
Mhm.
could be high risk, but again, you just need a tiny bit of guidance on that. But also as well, if you need to do something in Spanish for a Spanish client, you can download that documentation, put it in here, and it will translate it to that language and verify that it will cover their understanding and legals. And then you can download the
Okay.
document in a different language. So it's very, very interesting to have that in there. What else do we have? There's timeline information on the drop down if you want to familiarize yourself with you know,
Page that's coming in. Okay.
every stage that's coming. Yeah, so it's all there. On the drop down, as you can see, we're 41 days
Very good
past.
actually for kind of, yeah,
Yeah,
like if you're trying to set up in the system, that's really good to kind of help you understand what your obligations are in the future as well and plan out that way as well. That's fantastic.
exactly. So anybody who doesn't have this set up, who's using AI today, has 41 days of compliance debt, right? So
Mhm.
that's what this will tell you basically. And then on the transparency side, because that is the deadline that's just kicked in, there's a bit more detail just on the transparency piece for how to discover where you're at within your business, internal perspective and external perspective. So it covers all the bases for how to manage your disclosure obligations, how to manage your human oversight inside your business and externally to your business. It's very, very quick, short reading. You can get yourself up to speed if you need to, with literally 12 bullet points per topic, and that will cover most things. So that's in there as well as just a guide. And lastly, then we have a feed tied directly to updates and legal changes to anything that comes from the EU AI Act. So this updates every 30 minutes. Um, New news stories are here if you're interested in them. Most people aren't, but when a major one comes out, the system will then prompt to produce that update for all users, so people can be confident that they stay compliant even when things change. So the platform essentially is there to help you log, monitor, and meet the human oversight audit trail requirements of the EU AI Act. And the platform is industry agnostic and works for anyone. Doesn't matter what size business you are.
That's fantastic, Alan. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And just again, because we're recording this on the 12th of September, I'd like to point out that in 2 weeks' time, on the 24th of September, we will be doing actually an AI safety webinar, and Alan might be able to join me for a few minutes there and answer any questions you have on that. And if he can't, we'll definitely do another Q&A follow-up, because I think there was a lot in there. There's a lot to the platform, and it's incredible to see it all there. But I'm conscious of it being a little bit overwhelming depending on the size of the business and how many people have it. Typically speaking, Alan, how long do you think it takes somebody to get set up on the system?
So an individual who probably has 3 to 4 use cases within their business, maybe they use agents, maybe they have a tool for social media, maybe they have a tool for email responses. They will generally be fully set up in an hour, hour and a half. So
Fantastic.
it's not too
Yeah.
bad.
It's not too bad.
SMEs.
And yeah, as you said then, it's literally just monitoring it after that then and just does the system send you notifications on kind of I suppose when you need to check in?
Yes, it does do. So whoever is the assigned or associated compliance lead or responsible person, they will get updates if a change is required, and at the intervals where it's legally required.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's all from me for today. I thought it was a fantastic overview of it, and it's so simple to use. I think you've put in a load of different, kind of spaces into it. I guess just one wider question that might come up. Obviously, we're looking at the EU AI Act now, and as we know, the geopolitical landscape of AI is quite differentiated compared to, what is required in the States, what is required in Europe, what is required in Asia in terms of AI compliance and security. Will we in the future potentially see some of those other, I guess, kind of, I'm not going to say compliance acts because they're slightly different, but the other requirements globally coming into the app as well?
Yeah, we will for sure. So as new regulations get brought into law, because there's nowhere really that has full regulations like the EU AI Act, they have kind of notices or mandates. They're not fully locked in. When those mandates or new laws are brought in, the system will adapt to those. So as well as being industry agnostic from a user perspective, we want to be globally agnostic from a regulations perspective, where any user anywhere will be able to essentially, like with your industry there on the top banner, click the drop down and set up your account for, US only or Asia only or whatever it's going to be. So yeah, like at the moment when a new update happens, it's in the platform within 24 hours.
Fantastic, brilliant, Ellen. And if somebody wants to reach out and chat to you, what's the best way to go about it?
So the two email addresses, one is Alan at tipcansolutions.com. The other is tipcansolutions@gmail.com. I'm always available on LinkedIn. So Alan Thornton is where you'll see me. Can't miss me. And the website for the product itself has a contact form, which is ai-compliance.app. And that's where you can make inquiries about the platform, or if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Fantastic, Alan. And anyone can reach out to me as well. Happy to chat through the platform as well as an Ireland representative of it. So, yeah, Alan, thank you so much for joining today. And as I said, join the AI safety webinar on the 24th of September. Take care.
Bye.
Stop recording.
Cool. Hopefully that was all right.
Yeah.